Hi guys, so we are going to read chapter 23 and actually 23, 24, 25, and then we'll be all done. Then you can take your AR test on it. Oh, how exciting! Chapter 23, The Empty Book. They won't let me visit him the first day, and Graham says I'll have to be patient and let the doctors do their business. I can't stand just sitting around. So I decide to walk over to the hospital, which Grim says is miles and miles, but to suit myself. I know how to get there because Freak and I went yonder that way once so he could show me the medical research building. It's not the same, though, without Freak along to turn the houses into castles and the swimming pools into moats. All I keep thinking is, what a jip it is to have to go to the hospital on your birthday. Finally, I get there and I see the fair Gwen's car in the visitor parking lot, but Grim says I should leave her alone and let her tend to her son. So what I do is go round back to the medical research building and find this stupid little tree I can sit under. I have the old ornithopter bird with me. I'm winding it up and flying it around, figuring maybe Freak will get a chance to look out the window and see it fluttering by. That's my plan, and I'm under this puny little tree messing with birds until this guy mowing the lawn makes me move. So I wander around to the front of the hospital, and that's when the fair Gwen finds me. "Maxwell," she says, and she gives me this great big hug, a wet hug because she's been crying. "Max, I've been looking all over for you. Kevin wants to see you. He's making quite a fuss about it, and Dr. Spivak says it's okay, but just for a few minutes." So the fair Gwen takes me inside, and I figure we're heading for the medical research building, but instead we go to the regular hospital. "He's in the ICU," she says. "So they're taking really good care of him?" I ask. "They're doing their best, Max," she says. The intensive care unit is this place where there's so many nurses you can't hardly turn around without bumping into one, which I do as soon as we get there. Every patient gets a room alone, and there's all this electronic gear, and the fair Gwen says it's called telemetry, which means when Freak sneezes, the nurses know about it before he can even wipe his nose. I'm not scared at all until I actually go into his room and see how small he looks on the bed. They got him sitting up with all these tubes going to his arms and up his nose, and Dr. Spivak is guarding him, and she won't let me come too close. "I thought no visitors was the best policy for now," Dr. Spivak says, "but Kevin wants what Kevin gets." Dr. Spivak is a small woman with short red hair and a real stern face, and like she's mad because Freak wants to see me or because I'm breaking some of her precious equipment or something. "That will be all," Freak says to her. "You are dismissed." The thing is, his voice sounds funny, not just faint and weak, but kind of whistly. Only when I get closer do I see he's got this weird little plastic button stuck in his neck. "It's called a tracheotomy," he says, holding his finger against the button, which stops the whistling sound. "Standard procedure to facilitate breathing." "Does it hurt?" I ask. "No way," I said. "I think it's kind of cool. Listen to this." And he plays with his finger against the button, making his throat whistle its tune, which he says is the theme to Star Trek, although you can hardly recognize it. "So, when do you get home?" I ask. Freak can't move much the way they've got him set up in bed, so he sort of shakes his eyes instead of his head. "I'm not coming home," he says. "Not my present manifestation." I go, "What?" "The bionic unit is on red alert," he says. "Tonight they'll take me down there for my special operation. The next time you see me, I'll be new and improved." "I'm scared," I say. "Don't be a moron," he says. "You're not the one having surgery." I still wish they wouldn't. "Don't argue with me," he says. I have to lean close to hear him because his voice is so small and whispery. He goes, "If you argue with me, I'll get upset and I'll tell on the telemetry, then you'll get in trouble." So I just stand there like a lump and don't say anything for a while, and I put the ornithopter on the foot of this bed, but I don't think he notices. "See that book on the table?" he says. He can't point, but he just kind of looks at the table. "Open it." The book reminds me of the dictionary he gave me for Christmas, except when I open it, all the pages are blank. "That's for you," he says. "I want you to fill it up with our adventures." "Huh?" "Write it down, dummy." "I'm going to do it, but now it looks like I'll be busy getting used to my new bionic body. I'll probably take me weeks just to learn how to walk with long legs." I put the book down. "You're the one with the brain," I say. "I'm the one with long legs." "Don't get me upset," he warns. "I won't have the time, so you'll have to do it. Just write it all down, like you're talking. Put all the fun we had, the cool things we did, our adventures." "But you know I can't write, Kevin." "It's all in your head, Max. Everything you can remember. Just tell the story of Freak the Mighty. No big deal." I pick the book back up, but I don't say anything more about how hopeless it is, me trying to write stuff down, because I don't want to set off the telemetry. He does that himself about a minute later when he starts to cough, and before I can say anything, the room is swarming with nurses, and Dr. Spivak is telling me I have to leave. "Out this second, young man, and let us do our job." They let me wait outside the ICU with the fair Gwen, who's just standing there at the window, wringing her hands and not saying anything, and then finally they come out and say he's okay, it's just a bad spell, and they have him stabilized. A while later, Graham comes into the hospital and she drives me home. Nobody talks much at supper that night, except when Grim opens his big mouth and says, "Poor Gwen. Looks like she's in terrible pain." I go, "Poor Gwen? She's not the one having the special operation." And Grim and Graham just look at one another like they can't believe how dumb I am. And finally Graham says, "Maxwell, dear, make an effort to eat your vegetables." That night I put the empty box into the empty book into the pyramid box for safekeeping and for good luck. Chapter 24. The deal is, I'm not supposed to bother anybody at the hospital. Yeah, right, like me being there is going to screw things up. The way everybody's acting around here, you're supposed to shut up and not do anything but wait, which makes me crazy. So early the next morning, when Grim is still snoring loud enough to rattle the window panes, I get up and sneak out of the house. The way I figure I can check on Freak and be back in time for breakfast. No harm done. It doesn't work out like that, to say the least. The sun is just coming up over the mill pond, and there's a spooky mist on the water. You can hear all the frogs making racket under the lily pads, and the mosquitoes sound like bullets whizzing by, and I have to kind of slap and run until I get clear of the smelly old pond. Moving fast like the sun is chasing my heels, I'm running down this long, faint shadow of me that stretches out ahead. You can't ever catch up with it, though. I'm thinking with my feet like the rest of me is still asleep. Not that I'm completely alone. There's this one old guy. He's actually out cutting his lawn. He's got these headlights rigged up on his rider mower, and he's wearing pajamas, too. Like it's normal. Everybody does that. When I get to the hospital, the street lights are just starting to click off, and the lobby is empty, and there's nobody at the desk to tell me I can't be in the visiting patients at the crack of dawn. There's plenty of nurses in the ICU, though, and they see me coming. And this one woman runs right out from behind the telemetry station. She got her hand on her mouth, and I'm pretty sure she's trying to shush me, even though I'm not making any noise. But she's not telling me to be quiet, though. She says, "Oh my God, you must be Maxwell," even though she's never seen me before in her life. I go, "Is Kevin back yet?" Oh dear, she says. "Is he going to be okay?" Oh dear, oh dear. Now more nurses are coming out of the ICU. One of them is the one I accidentally bumped into yesterday, and when she sees me, she goes, "Better page Dr. Spivak. Kevin was her patient." That's when I notice that some of the nurses are crying and look at me strange, and all of a sudden I go nuts. I just go nuts. I'm saying, "No way, no way." And this nurse is trying to throw a hug on me, and I push her away. Then I'm running down the hall, and it's like I'm Kicker again, ready to just blast anybody who dares touch me. And I have to keep running. I'm skidding around the corners and bumping into walls, and no one can touch me, even if they're brave enough to try. I just keep running until I get to these glass doors that say medical research. The doors are locked, and it's dark inside. Behind me, people are shouting to call the guards, and I punch my hand right through the glass, and I'm inside, skidding over broken glass through the dark, and I keep going until I come to the other set of doors. No admittance. No glass this time. They're solid, so I can't punch through, and I'm kicking and slamming into the door, and that's when all the hospital cops catch up with me. A bunch of them jump in on me, and I keep going and running around in circles like an accident of nature until finally, there's so many of them on me, I can't stand up anymore. They're putting handcuffs on my wrists and my ankles, and they're sitting on me and going, "We'll have to medicate him." And this one cop says, "With what, an elephant gun?" That's how Dr. Spivak finds me, covered with cops. She's this worried face leaning down, and her eyes are red and blurry, and she says, I'm sorry, Maxwell, we did our best. Better let me bandage up your hand. You're bleeding." "He believed you," I said. "You said you could give him a new body, and he believed you." "What are you talking about?" she says. "The special operation," I say. "The bionic unit?" And Dr. Spivak makes the cops let me up and say she'll be responsible, but they leave the handcuffs on me just in case. And the cop who was talking about needing an elephant gun has this nightstick out, and he's ready to bop me if I make a move. Oh, sorry. Dr. Spivak sighs and says, "Somebody get me coffee, please." And then she looks at me and goes, "You better tell me all about it." So while she's bandaging up my hand, I tell her about how Freak had been coming to the medical research lab every few months to get fitted for his new bionic body. And Dr. Spivak's face goes soft, and she nods to herself and says, "Well, that explains it." "It was a lie, wasn't it?" I said. "You were just telling him that so he wouldn't be scared." "You know better than that, Maxwell. You couldn't lie to Kevin. I tried a little fib on him when he was about 7 years old because I didn't think a child could handle the whole truth. You know what he did? He looked up his disease in the medical dictionary." That's when I know she's telling the truth. Freak and his dictionaries. "Kevin knew from a very young age that he wasn't going to live very long," she says. "He knew it was just a matter of time." "So he was lying about getting a robot body?" And Dr. Spivak is shaking her head. "I don't think so. It was a lie, Maxwell. Do you? I think he needed something to hope for, and so he invented this rather remarkable fantasy you describe. Everybody needs something to hope for. Don't call it a lie. Kevin wasn't a liar." "No," I said. "But what happened to him, really?" "I could tell you all the medical terminology," he says, "but what finally happened is his heart just got too big for his body." There was talk about arresting me for busting up the hospital, and the cop with the nightstick was in favor, but finally they released me into the custody of Grim. On the way home, he goes, "Do you want to talk about it?" "Just leave me alone," I say. "You got it," he says. Chapter 25. What Loretta Said. That was a year ago. I hid in the down under for days and days and kept the doors closed, which is why I missed the funeral and the fair Gwen going away. Graham told me all about it afterwards, how she couldn't stand to live in a house with Kevin gone, and who could blame her. Grim threatened to unscrew my bedroom door, but he never did. He just kept saying I should come out for Graham's sake. And sometimes she'd come down and say I should come out for Grim's sake, and so on and so forth, until finally I gave up and came out. I don't know if this makes sense, but for a long time I felt like I was a balloon and somebody had let the air out of me. I didn't care if I ever got the air back, because what does it really matter if all we're going to do is die in the end anyway? That's how down I was feeling and sorry for myself. Grim tried to tell me it isn't how long you live, but what you got that matters. It's what you do with the time that you have. Well, that sounded so lame and puny next to freak dying that I didn't want to hear it. This one day, just before school was supposed to start, I was moping around the backyard thinking about how pointless and stupid everything was, and Grim comes over and he says, "You know what? Most of us go through our whole lives and we never have a friend like Kevin, so maybe you should count yourself lucky." "Yeah, right," I say. "Suit yourself," he says, "but let's get one thing straight. You're going back to school if I have to hitch a rope to the bumper and drag you there. Is that clear?" So I went, and I hated every minute of it. I especially hated how people kept feeling sorry for me, as if it was me who had died. Finally, one time, even Tony D came up to me and said, "It's a shame what happened." I could see that he really meant it, and I just blew up and told him if he ever felt sorry for me again, I put it head first into the mill pond and pound him down into the mud like a fence post. So we're enemies again, which is just the way I like it. Not too long after that, this was winter by then, I saw Loretta Lee in the street. She still had on her neck brace, and you could smell booze on her breath. But what do you expect, a miracle just because she lost her head and acted good for a minute? Anyhow, Loretta sees me and she says, "Did you hear about Gwen? She's in California and she's got a new boyfriend. His name is Rick, and they're crazy about each other. Ain't that good news?" "I guess so." "Take it from me," she says. "It is." "So what are you doing these days?" "Nothing." She gives me this long look and she goes, "Doing nothing is a drag, kid. Think about it." I thought about it all the way home. That night, I pulled the pyramid box from under the bed and got the empty book out of the pyramid, and I'm thinking, who are you kidding, Maxwell Kane? You haven't got a brain. And that's the truth. The whole truth, and the unvanquished truth, is how Freak would say it. So I wrote the unvanquished truth stuff down, and then I kept on going for months and months until it was spring again, and the world was really and truly green all over. By the time we got here, which I guess should be the end, I'm feeling okay about remembering things. And now I've written a book, and who knows? I might even read a few. No big deal. The end. Freak the Mighty. Rodman Philbrick. I know it's backwards for you guys. Okay, I love you. Bye.